And welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights webinar titled Impact of Bias on Muslim Communities in New Jersey. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. This program will be recorded, and given this is a webinar format, audience members will not be seen on camera and you will be muted. As an audience member, you can drop questions in the Q&A tab, and you have the option to submit your questions anonymously. Due to time constraints, we ask that you keep all questions on topic. Please note that questions we do not get to this evening may be answered as a follow-up after the event. You can also email us at communityrelations@njcivilrights.gov. I'll repeat that, communityrelations@njcivilrights.gov. Throughout tonight's webinar, we will be sharing resource links and contact information in the chat feature. If you experience any technical difficulties, please explain your problem through the chat feature, and we will try our best to address the issue. Lastly, please follow the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights on Facebook and on Twitter at Civil Rights NJ for the latest news, resources, and information from our office. Now, I'd like to introduce T. Leonardo Santiago. T serves as the Director of Outreach for the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights. T.
Thank you, Fanny, and thank you for joining us for tonight's program. Islam intersects with all races, ethnicities, nationalities, and genders, and tonight's program is very close to my heart because I grew up in a bicultural Catholic Muslim household in a diverse community in northern New Jersey. Growing up in a blended household came with more advantages than disadvantages. One of those advantages was learning about the beauty of Islam from a young age. And one of those disadvantages that caused great pain was the pain that Islamophobia caused to our communities. I witnessed firsthand the impact bias had on my Muslim family members and surrounding Muslim communities. As a child, I didn't understand how people could be so cruel, yet saw how the community time and time again leaned into the pillars of their faith and rallied around those affected. Those injustices and community advocacy contributed to my drive for public service, specifically in civil rights. We hope that from tonight's program, you will walk away with a better understanding of how DCR and the protections afforded under the law against discrimination intersect with religion, what discrimination and bias-based harassment can look like, and how they can impact individuals in the Muslim community. Even strategies you can use to address hate and bias-based harassment. And finally, possible action steps. Yes, action steps community members can take to help lessen the impact of bias and hate in New Jersey as a whole. Without further ado, I turn it over to our moderator for this evening, our community relations specialist, Patricia Williamson. Thank you.
Thank you, T. And good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia Williamson, and I'm a community relations specialist here with the Division on Civil Rights. And I'd also like to welcome you to tonight's webinar. We have a lot to explain, to explore, and so I'm going to start right away. We have our keynote speaker, and I'd like to just introduce him now. His name is Dr. Ali Chowdhury. We have a full bio of Dr. Chowdhury and all of our other guests, which will be dropped into the chat. I'll only be reading a little bit at this time so that we can save more time for the speakers to actually speak. But Dr. M. Ali Chowdhury grew up in Pakistan, graduated from the London School of Economics with honors in economics and econometrics, and received a PhD in economics from Tufts University. He worked for AT&T for 30 years in various departments, including chief economist, strategic planning, and finance, where he served as division CFO for the PR division. Dr. Chowdhury also served as mayor in Bernards Township in 2004, becoming the first Pakistani-born Muslim to become mayor in America. Dr. Chowdhury is a co-founder of the New Jersey Interfaith Coalition. He serves on the New Jersey Attorney General's Muslim Outreach Committee and as a member of the Interfaith Advisory Council of the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. Dr. Chowdhury initiated the pledge to stand up for the other, calling on everyone to challenge bigotry in any form. I introduce to you and present to others Dr. Chowdhury.
Thank you very much, Patricia. I would just like to thank the leadership that the Attorney General has shown, and Patricia and the whole civil rights, the Division of Civil Rights in New Jersey is clearly showing by focusing on a very, very serious problem. We all recognize that Islamophobia has really skyrocketed, and data shows that Muslims are now subject to all kinds of hate and bias. And we also recognize that the state of New Jersey ranked among the highest of states in the nation in Islamophobic incidents last year. So this is all the more important that we focus on the impact of this phenomenon that has unfortunately grown so much, not only because there is an anti-Muslim sentiment that has grown since 9/11, especially. Up until 9/11, perhaps people really didn't know many Muslims. But once that happened, Muslims became much more visible and therefore became targets of bias, incidents, and hate. And so now I think it is very important for us to look at all aspects of the impact that Islamophobia has and bias incidents and hate has had. One of the other underlying forces that I think we need to recognize is that Islamophobia by itself probably would not have grown as much if there weren't other people who took advantage of the situation after 9/11 and began to fund activities to promote Islamophobia. Many organizations have commented on these and have documented hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into this effort. So not only do we need to address what we can do as law enforcement, but as community leaders working with other communities, we think it's important for us to address those sources of funding for promoting Islamophobia and bias in general. And unfortunately, it is not just against Muslims. That kind of funding has affected other communities as well. So I would like to address the partnership that I think is absolutely essential between the Muslim community and law enforcement. When we began to work with the Attorney General's office many years ago as a part of the Muslim Outreach Committee, I think it's worth pointing out that we recognized that the issues were much bigger than any part of the community could deal with. Therefore, a partnership with law enforcement was critical. And we joined the Attorney General's office in trying to develop a program so that we could create at least some better understanding of Islam and Muslims. Unfortunately, that work obviously has not had as much of an influence as we wish, and therefore there's more that we need to do. Now, looking at the impact on the community, and I'm sure we are going to hear much more from Atiya and others about specific communities that are affected in terms of the negative impact of Islamophobia on the Muslim community. But I would like to focus on all of our community segments, especially focusing on students, both at the college level and also in the K through 12 level. Because Islamophobia, unfortunately, has resulted in increasing bullying of Muslims, I have become aware of many incidents in areas where I'm connected with people. And that is something that's very, very troublesome. And unfortunately, that is a problem that has not gone away. And even though every school system is supposed to have an anti-bullying program, I'm not sure that it is being fully enforced. So to what extent can we have the Division of Civil Rights work with the Department of Education to try and focus on that as that aspect of the Islamophobia hurting our children, hurting their self-confidence, hurting their pride in being Muslims. And one of the key things that I always try to emphasize when I'm meeting with young people and with families is to try to inculcate a pride in being American, but also a pride in being Muslim. So Muslims don't have to choose between being an American first or a Muslim first. You have to choose, you have to recognize that Muslims have a faith that is beautiful, that is full of love, peace, and respect for others. But at the same time, we have to recognize that because of the ignorance about Islam, about the ignorance of our culture and our traditional values, unfortunately, this anti-Muslim sentiment persists. And as I mentioned, the incident of a mosque, I would just like to mention this specific case, which in Bernards Township, popularly known as Basking Ridge, where I had served on the Board of Education for 6 years, served as a mayor in 2004, as you just heard, and then worked to develop a community center in the town for the benefit of everyone. And yet, when we applied to get permission to build a mosque, opposition developed, and which was really quite surprising to us, and the extent to which that emerged. And it was all boiled down to finally this animus that had been rising among the population. And some folks decided to take up on that. So I would like to suggest that in our discussions, let's focus on what we can do as partners, Muslim community at all levels and in all areas of the state, working with law enforcement at every level. And we are very fortunate to have the leadership right now in law enforcement that is very receptive. And we would like to take advantage of that and to make sure that we, first of all, we report incidents that happen. Then we work with law enforcement, local police, county, state, at every level to make sure that people understand the importance of the impact that is clearly being felt by the community. My concern is that often we have discussions, but no action is taken. So I would like to suggest that when we conclude our discussions and begin to develop a program, that let law enforcement recruit Muslims from all levels of society, all parts of society, to participate at the local level. And I almost feel that in every county, we need to have a cell where people are constantly working with law enforcement to get reports of what is going on and also encourage the community to make sure that all incidents are reported. Often there is a lot of hesitance, unfortunately. And I think we as community members have an obligation to do that. Therefore, our Islamic centers, all of our masajid, and other community organizations have an obligation to educate and encourage members of our community to report incidents as they happen so that law enforcement can take action. So one thing that I would like to end with is this. Generally, law enforcement is receptive to concerns that we have, but because the laws that currently exist are such that police generally would say that unless the incident reaches a level of a crime, they can't do much about it. So one thing that I have emphasized on, worked on, is to try to get changes in the laws where law enforcement has more power and the ability to investigate every incident as it happened from the point of view of the individuals who is affected, or the whole family that's affected, and the community as a whole that's affected. We would consider that to be a major improvement if we can get law enforcement to take action on all reports that come in, and then determine whether further action is necessary. So one other thing that I think at a higher level that would be of real help is that if we could define what Islamophobia is. Now, there is an effort. There is a proposed legislation regarding that issue. And there are a number of people, including Sami Shaban, who has done a lot of work in our community on this subject, and Atiya and others, that we feel that if Islamophobia was defined, then law enforcement, I think, would be in a better position to take action when incidents happen that would be covered by such an explanation. So with that, I want to thank you again, Patricia, for organizing this. And hopefully what comes out of these discussions is that it will lead to some pragmatic solutions that we can all work together to promote.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chowdhury. I'm busily taking notes, and I really appreciate everything you said. There's a lot that we can unpack. And so without any further ado, I want to start. Please stay with us. We'd like to have you as part of the panel as well. And I'd like to introduce the rest of our panelists so that we can start talking about what you just said. So first, I will introduce I'm going to introduce Gazim Bajamri. He is a first-generation American and Houston, Texas native, graduated from Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas, with a Bachelor of Arts in Government in 2009. From there, he went on to attend Seton Hall Law School in Newark, New Jersey, earning his Juris Doctorate in 2013. Since October 2016, Dag Bajrami has been assigned to the Office of the Attorney General's Division of Criminal Justice, where he leads confidential investigations, conducts settlement negotiations, and represents the state of New Jersey in the prosecution of felony-level crimes throughout the state of New Jersey. Welcome, Attorney Bajrami.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Next, I'd like to introduce Atiya Aftab, Esquire, who currently maintains her own practice, providing representation to nonprofit corporations. Atiya has been an adjunct professor at Rutgers University, Department of Political Science and Middle Eastern Studies program, teaching Islamic law and jurisprudence for over 10 years. She is also the chair of the Center for Islamic Life at Rutgers University, convener of the first full-time dedicated Muslim chaplaincy at a public university in the nation. Atiya is the co-founder and chair emerita of the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom, an international women's interfaith organization. Atiya received her Bachelor of Arts degree, Phi Beta Kappa, in 1988, majoring in political science, Pi Sigma Alpha from Rutgers College. She went on to Rutgers Law School in Newark and graduated with her Juris Doctorate degree in 1991. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Patricia.
And next, I'd like to introduce Imam Amin Muhammad, who is a native of Atlantic City, New Jersey, who has studied with traditional Shuyukh from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Lebanon. He has studied many of the Islamic sciences, such as Aqidah, Fiqh, Tafsir, Sirah, Hadith, and Hadith methodology. Presently, Imam Amin teaches Hadith, Fiqh, and delivers Jamua Khutbah at Masjid Muhammad in Atlantic City, New Jersey. He also teaches and lectures at various mosques in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. Welcome, Amin Muhammad.
Good evening. Thank you for having us, and we're looking forward to an engaging conversation.
Yes. And so I just want to remind everyone the full biographies of all of our guests are in your chat. They're on our website as well. I just read a little bit just so we all have an idea of where we're starting. So I'd like to just start with a basic question and just ask you to tell us about your respective organizations. And so I'm going to start with Atia and ask you to describe some of the organizations that you're representing.
Sure. Thank you, Patricia, again. And again, thank you for doing this panel from the DCR. So I'm wearing multiple hats here, and that includes from the adult side, representing women who are part of the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom. It's a Muslim-Jewish interfaith organization, as well as the Islamic Society of Central Jersey. It's a mosque in South Brunswick, and it's been around since 1975, one of the oldest mosques in New Jersey. And it is, what we dealt with and what we're dealing with in Islamophobia has a different flair from the mosque perspective versus from an interfaith perspective. And then the third perspective I'm bringing today is the perspective of the Muslim student on campus. And that is my representation of the Muslim chaplaincy at Rutgers University. And they all have a different flair to them.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Would anyone else like to take that question as well? How are you showing up today? Which organizations, or it may, if not an organization, if it's an entity, or in terms of your representation tonight?
I'll say myself, Imam Amin Muhammad. I am the Imam of Masjid Muhammad in Atlantic City, which is the oldest masjid in South Jersey. Our community was established in 1954. So I am a legacy of Islamic African-American leadership for 70 years. And I think that gives us a very strong position to talk about the positions of Muslims in New Jersey, especially in South Jersey. Not only that, we are extremely active in community engagement. I think the city of Atlantic City and Southern New Jersey can be a great example of how to network between religious communities, social activists, political and law enforcement, because we tie all that in and we work together. Our masjid often holds seminars at the local, state, and even the federal level where faith-based organizations, community organizations, law enforcement, and state workers come together to join together to discuss these very issues. So it's a great opportunity to share and network that I think the state of New Jersey can do better in networking together.
Okay. What I'd like to do, I'm going to stay with you for a second, Imam, and then move around to our other panelists. I'm going to ask you the next question. Could you please identify some of the sources and manifestations of Islamophobia?
If I can, I want to read a definition as people are working to redefine Islamophobia. I'll take very quick to brief and then I'll answer your question. Mm-hmm. If we look at Islamophobia in a broader definition, it may be said it is a fear or prejudice or hatred of Muslims or non-Muslim individuals that leads to provocation, hostility, and intolerance by means of threatening, harassment, abuse, incitement, and intimidation of Muslims and non-Muslims, both online, offline in the community, motivated by institutional, ideological, political, and religious or economic hostility that transcends into structural and cultural racism, which targets the symbols and markers of a person being a Muslim. With all that, I want to say the sources can be institutional, ideological, political, economic, social status, class bias, and also color racism. All of that and ethnicity combines under Islamophobia. So I would define it, if we want to talk about it and really make an impact and really have action items, we need to consider all of those aspects and not be shy to discuss certain aspects that may not apply to me, but applies to someone else who suffers, or may not apply to someone else, but applies to a certain ethnicity. I think all of it needs to be encompassed.
Okay.
Patricia, if I may,
Yes.
just pick up on this very important point that the Imam just made. One
Yes.
is that Muslims come from many, many different cultures, many different backgrounds. We follow the same faith, the single faith of Islam, but we come from many, many different cultural backgrounds. And one thing that I also wanted to emphasize, even by way of introduction, is that Muslims who came from, say, South Asia or Indonesia or other places, did not realize the role that the African-American Muslims had played in getting into politics early on, getting really involved with the struggles of civil rights. And I think it's now so important for us to recognize that we are one community. We are all Muslims, Muslim Americans, and without regard to which country we came from, what races or what languages we speak, we need to unite. And I think we need to leverage the tremendous depth of experience that the African-American community had gained. And honestly, I have learned a lot when I started working with the interfaith groups, and I discovered organizations like, the Muslims voter organization, all of the groups that were working, and began to learn from the work that they had done. So I want to emphasize that in being, coming together now from all backgrounds, we need to recognize the value of every individual community that we can bring to bear on this big task that we all face.
Thank you, Dr. Chowdhury. I want to bring in our Deputy Attorney General for this next question. I would like to ask, how can law enforcement effectively partner with the Muslim community to combat violence and hate?
Thank you, Patricia. So for me, that question is actually a lot more streamlined than it sounds. And I think in so many ways, effective partnerships between the Muslim community and law enforcement both begin and end in trust. And before I continue, just the usual caveat, I'm sure Ms. Aftab would appreciate the legal disclaimer. I'm, of course, here in my personal capacity as an individual who happens to be Muslim American, but also be a state prosecutor at the Attorney General's office. So having said that, I'm happy to, of course, continue. But that beginning and end in trust, I think, is a two-way street. So plain and simple, as members of law enforcement, there are certain things that we simply have to do our job. And if left wondering what those things are, starts with information. We need evidence. We need, for instance, photographs, videos of a particular incident, firsthand accounts. Things that have happened require prompt reporting. They require accurate recitations of what somebody saw and when they saw it. And I think that upon relying on community members to play that role in this trust relationship, we as law enforcement have a job to do as well. And in many ways, that can be stated as not just a one-off, not simply saying we're here, we're law enforcement, we're somehow immediately deserving of that trust. I think of it as a living, breathing thing that requires constant attention. It requires constant, like watering a plant. You can have it, but it's only going to last so long until we do our part to continue that relationship. So if I'm going to go by way of example, this can mean things that are so simple, but I think often are overlooked. So this can mean members of law enforcement stopping by a mosque at a particular function or to attend an event, or even for no reason at all, just to stop by and say hello. I think that can include making sure that mosques, particularly during Ramadan, have enough assistance if necessary with parking, with allocating space for people to come and go as necessary, with security presence as needed. I think these are all things that are small in isolation, but when you add them together, they continue to roll down the hill and make for that relationship of trust that we're looking for. So it's not just us asking for information and then expecting to be left alone. It's that two-way street where we have a role to play too, and that's our intention to continue to do that.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to answer that same question, but asking, describing it from a position of not being in law enforcement?
Yeah, if I could jump in, Patricia, I think, and I'll echo a little bit of what Imam Muhammad said, that our mosque, our masjid in South Brunswick, New Jersey, has had a very good relationship with local and police enforcement, as well as the state, as well as federal. And I think when I'm going to say instances, but the tragedy of 9/11 occurred, or Christchurch, the Christchurch massacre, any of these major tragedies, it's always been a great relationship that we have built over time. Why? Because our community members are involved in the community. Our community members are part of the different aspects of government. So having that type of a relationship allowed for, when the tragedy happens, that law enforcement is there for us, that we have that, pick up the phone and say, hey, police chief, this is what's going on. We need your assistance. So I think when the community is involved, when the Muslim community is involved in the larger community, I think we have many more points of positive connection. Now I'm going to bring up on the other side. The other side is when I speak about our students on campus at Rutgers, many of you know that Rutgers campus specifically was targeted by the NYPD, and that case was adjudicated in federal court and determined that yes, indeed, illegal surveillance was done amongst our Muslim community, our Muslim student groups. And so you have a level of distrust, as well as not just our student community, but there's distrust in other communities across the country for various reasons. So I think the challenge in those spaces is different. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Luckily, the campus that we're on at Rutgers, we've been able to foster a relationship with our UPD, the Rutgers Police, and our students and faculty and our organization, our chaplaincy. But there's still a level of distrust with law enforcement in general, and that's something that has to be worked on.
Thank you.
Patricia, if I may
Yes.
add to that, in addition to the work that has been going on statewide, we also felt, Muslim community also felt, that in order to strengthen this partnership, we wanted to have law enforcement come closer to our mosques. So last year, we actually hosted, we got a mosque in Edison, Masjid Al-Wali, to provide their conference facilities, where we held a job fair, where almost every agency from the state, from the county, and local police came and met our community. And I remember spending hours of conversation with people, just getting to know them and developing this relationship. We are saying, we would like you to come and get more Muslims involved in law enforcement. And I'm glad to say that there are a number of folks who have now joined law enforcement, including being state troopers. And I've had the opportunity to work at the State Police Academy, talking about Islam and Muslims, and one of their talks has been used to develop more into training. And I think that's a two-way street. Muslim community has to give something in terms of resources that we have available. And we have said, look, we will provide free speakers. We will provide resources that the communities can offer. Our mosques are open to people to come, to law enforcement to welcome. And we have, I think in New Jersey, probably have developed a very good relationship where we've always tried to take advantage of the Ramadan events, for example, during, as the Deputy Attorney just mentioned, when we have iftars, we make it a point of bringing leadership from law enforcement to come in and speak. And the community appreciates that. So I think the one thing that people were more interested in was how many Muslims are being recruited into various law enforcement agencies. So I'm so glad to see that we have Muslims now taking part at different levels. We have detectives who are participating in Homeland Security. We have members of the Attorney General's office getting involved. And I think we need to try to do that at the local level as well. So it's a two-way street by getting more Muslims in law enforcement. And I have actually encouraged them to come to various mosques and act as role models. So people can see that, yes, if he can do it, I can also become a police officer or a state trooper and so forth. So I think setting those actual examples of people who've actually done the work and using that to let more people know about it. So this fair, I think, was a good example. And we would, again, repeat that for any other opportunity that we can create where law enforcement can come. And finally, I would just say that when we have new information, for example, if the Attorney General's office, like the bias unit, develop a program of how to report bias incidents. So over the last 9 months or so, we arranged at least 3 presentations at various masajid, including one in Palmyra, South New Jersey. As Imam emphasized the importance of South Jersey, we went with them. We had the representative of the U.S. Attorney General's office, a New Jersey Attorney General's office. We also have the U.S. Attorney for New Jersey representative also to come and talk to the community about it. And the community really appreciated that. And we are actually trying to develop similar programs at other parts of the in other parts of the state to make sure that we have that interaction going on. And certainly try to create a county-wide program where there's always a direct interaction with people.
Thank you. And I did go to the career fair that you were referring to in Edison. That was very good, very well attended. And we had a good opportunity to talk to people and talk about that law enforcement partnership with people. I want to go into the next question as we're continuing to talk about partnerships, not just law enforcement, but all of you have partnered, have different partnerships, and you've been speaking about them already. How has your partnership helped to combat the rise in hate crimes in your respective communities? And that's open for anyone. All of you may have something different.
Here in Atlantic City, and it kind of can follow from your last question, we have a policy of community engagement, not just when it's an issue affecting Muslims, but any issue in the community, we're actively involved. So that comes from a coalition of faith-based organizations, like we have the Bridges of Faith, which encompasses all religious persuasions, and we collectively work together, as well as community social activists, community organizers. They coming together with law enforcement and with politicians. So in our environment, we all have different roles in the community, and Muslims are in every position. So you have the faith-based, like as the imam. As far as law enforcement, we have many Muslim police officers. In fact, my son is a Muslim police officer, right? In politics, we have, and I'm quite sure all of y'all know, who was the former president of our mass, the vice president of Council of Atlantic City, Kaleem Shabazz, and many, many, many other councilmen that are Muslim. On the Board of Education, many Muslims. So in all of the community, so whenever there's a community concern, the Muslims are not just an isolated aspect of the community, rather it's an integral part of the community. So we have community walks, and we had from the Attorney General's office come to Atlantic City and walk in the neighborhoods. We do that regularly. Where there's a constant involvement between the Muslim community and the broader community as well, so that everyone becomes one family and recognize one as one family. So for instance, myself as the imam, I sit on the citizens advisory board. So which every month I talk to the chief of police, I talk to law enforcement and everything that's going in the community, not just things that affect in terms of Islamophobia, but things that happen in every segment of the community. That is extremely important. And then you have a relationship with the community and we don't see each other as just our religious background or no, we see us as fellow citizens of this great state or in our local communities, residents of our counties and cities.
I want to add that what Imam Muhammad is saying is not the norm. And, that it's sadly not the norm. And I say that because I'm coming out of a majority immigrant mosque, but I think that our mosque is an exception because also since its inception, it is an outflow of the Rutgers Muslim Student Association. There has always been this, as Imam Muhammad said, this like policy of get involved in civic duty. So we have also, been a mosque where we have had, I chair the Women's Commission in our town. We have our president of the library, we're Board of Education. The first Muslim judge in the state of New Jersey is from our community, Hani Molla, Judge Hani Molla. I can go down the list. Recently, we have one of the first headscarf wearing judges, Superior Court, Dalia Youssef. Judge Dalia Youssef is from our community. I was the first Deputy Attorney General. I'm a former DAG from our community. So we have a long history in our community also of, it's not just we're here and isolated from the rest of the world, we're part of it. We're part of the humanity of the town, of the state, and of this country. But I have to say that's not the norm. I want to be realistic. So I hope that what I'm saying and what Imam Muhammad is saying inspires other Muslim communities. Dr. Chaudhry also has that type of experience, inspires other Muslim communities in that direction. My work with interfaith, like we talk about, what are the partnerships? My interfaith work is also a different kind of partnership. And our mosque has had an interfaith flair to it from the beginning. We're part of the South and North Brunswick Clergy Association. And that has allowed us, for example, to be the first town in the state of New Jersey, South Brunswick, that our students get our 2 holidays off. And now that's become, there are dozens of townships now, but we were the first. It's nice to say the first sometimes, but it only happens when you're involved. It only happens when you make these partnerships with the other local clergy. And we had a situation where our Hindu community also would like to have the Diwali off. So we're like, listen, we're going to work together to have these holidays off that make a difference for our students. So it's very important. And the work that I'm doing with the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom is also in that capacity. We recognize that white supremacists, which is the biggest hate group and the biggest threat to us all right now, they hate Jews and they hate Muslims. So let's work together in this and stand up for each other in this, despite maybe our differences on geopolitics and what's going on in the Middle East, but let's stand up for what we have in common here in America, here in New Jersey. So you have to have partnerships. On Rutgers campus, we partner with the president's office, President Jonathan Holloway, first African-American president at a Big Ten university. We partner with our chancellor's office. We partner with our dean of students. We partner with Rutgers PD, because again, you're a Muslim, your duty is to the people. Our job is to take care of the earth and take care of our community. And that's a value that we all need to espouse, and we all need to kind of like scream from the top of the roof. That is our responsibility, not just take care of yourself or take care of your own people, whatever that means, but take care of everyone.
No, that's great. We all know that we have bias, and we have bias in our communities, and that's one of the reasons we have New Jersey Vision on Civil Rights to work with that and address that. How do we address some of the factors that contribute to bias in the community? The community can be defined however you wish, but how do we address some of those factors? Some of it's already been established and discussed already in terms of fear. Fear is one of the biggest factors that contributes. Misunderstanding, miseducation, misinformation, or what we used to call disinformation, deceitful, intentional misinformation. How do we address some of those factors?
So at the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom, our theory of change, this is like everyone has to have your theory of change. Now, this is the terminology. Our theory of change is contact theory. And that is when you get to know somebody, it is, first of all, it's knowledge. Get to know someone, break down the ignorance, build bridges of peace. You find out, oh, wait, actually, we have a lot in common. And that's like a first step. It's to humanize rather than dehumanize the other. Talk to someone who has a different color than you. Talk to someone who's a different belief system than you. So that's our fundamental kind of structure at the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom. And I think that value can just be taken out between people of any sort of difference. I think the bigger challenge, though, Patricia, is the disinformation and those who are intentionally using fear to cause division. And I think those groups need to be called out. And Imam Muhammad mentioned that, like the institutional problems, right? So we can do what we can on grassroots level and on and whatever levels that we can. However, we really need to combat the situation of disinformation and those who are using fear to divide us, and call that out. And really, I feel like a lot of energy needs to go in that effort.
And in fact, just on that point, if I may add, I have worked for a long time with the Jewish community at many, many different levels. I've worked with the Jewish Federation in all different areas. And one of the things I have challenged my friends on is, said, look, if you know people whose foundations are giving money to these organizations, like to Steve Emerson and others who promote Islamophobia and introduce, the differences rather than focus on differences rather than what's common. And I said, look, we all have this responsibility. Because if we don't do that, then obviously this disinformation that continues, lack of education is key. And I think this should really begin in the schools. We really need to do more by way of educating our children about each other. Not only as adults, we need to learn about each other, about our faiths, about our holidays, and so forth. And I'm glad that Atia mentioned the common effort that we're all trying to launch, where everyone is able to enjoy their holidays with pride and have the right to take the day off from school that day and so forth. But we've got to do this at a local level. And for example, when we first got our certificate of occupancy for my mosque, the first thing I did was I invited the chief of police and one of his detectives to come and take a tour of the mosque. I said, look, we're going to be opening, we're going to be praying during Ramadan. I need you to know what's going to be going on during this month. We'll have evening prayers, right? And I want you to know who comes here, what the building is, okay?
Because there's a lot of fear on just walking into a mosque.
Exactly.
We have to make our spaces inclusive.
No, I'm not trying to go
welcoming.
into a mosque. And one of the messages I try to give is our mosques are open. So you're welcome to come, and we encourage that. So I think that that's a direct effort that's needed. And I think more could be done really in the schools as well.
If I may,
Yes.
I want us to look broad. I think sometimes we look too narrow, and because we look narrow, we miss things. From the aspect of the Attorney General, from the aspect of law enforcement, when you're looking at a crime, you don't rule out any possibility. You open up that these are possibilities, and you start to narrow it down till you get to the point. I think a lot of our biases, especially in American, I'm an American, born and raised in America. I became a Muslim when I was 10 years old. I'm 53 now, right? So I have 43 years as a Muslim, right? And I remember a time when there was no such thing as Islamophobia. It wasn't no such thing. And as Dr. Chowdhury mentioned, was that this is 9/11. Well, I've been a Muslim way before 9/11. And so I didn't see this. So it was a time in America as Muslims, we knew nothing about Islamophobia. So I would actually venture to say that Islamophobia, as we understand it, is really racism with another name. Because when you think of them, you're not talking about me. right? When you say the others, you're thinking of someone who's an immigrant, right? We had no incidents since before 9/11, during 9/11, after 9/11 in our mosques. It doesn't even cross our minds. It's others who come to our mosques that are immigrants that we're concerned, what they go through, not what we go through. I'm an American. I've been born and raised, and we understand other issues that African-American Muslims face like other African-Americans. There are bigger concerns more than Islamophobia. But the same thing that led to the need for civil rights, that same thing, that same ugly monster is what's leading to Islamophobia. So education about what is a Muslim, what is Islam, and that spoken could educate people to realize, wait a minute, they're not an enemy trying to undermine our society. In fact, they are us. They are us. The one you look at every day is a human being just like you, but has a different faith conviction. But it's the same person. My neighbors in my neighborhood, in my environment, multicultural, everyone sees Muslims like they see every other American. We need to make that for immigrants as well, that they are part of the American society, American fabric. They are accountable, just like every other American, to make a better society. And they need to be given that opportunity, just like every American is given it. So I think, and when I hear that discussion, I think we do ourselves a disservice when we isolate ourselves from our origins as human beings, and then go beyond that. Since we're talking about the context of a society, we are Americans, right? I'm an American, born and raised in this country. And all of the ills of this country, all of the troubles are my concern. And anyone who comes to this country and adopts our lifestyle and our citizenship, there has those rights too. And we need to protect them, but they need to also be a part of the process. Lastly, the bias is not unwarranted. And I think the Muslims do a disservice in that aspect. There is a such thing as bad guys in the name of Islam that exists. There are radicals who have bad ideas and bad convictions and bad practices and mean harm, not to just America, to the world. Terrorism
In the name of Islam.
didn't start 9/11.
Yeah.
I was in school in Egypt in the late 80s, and I used to see terrorism every day before it reached the shores of America. Explosions and assassinations, I physically witnessed it when I was in school in Egypt. So I think we need to address that. And there are centers in the world that promote that, and we shouldn't let that come to our shores because of financial benefit from sources that promote evil.
I want to ask one more question right on that. That is powerful. We all hold a measure of implicit bias, all of us. What does it mean and look like for us to check our own biases so that we can address them on a societal scale? Some of it was already teased out by the imam, but I would love to hear what you all are thinking. I'll just say that again. We all hold a measure of implicit bias. All of us do. We may have a certain definition of what we think a Muslim is. And I love how you can look at all of us on the screen. None of us look alike. I happen to not be Muslim, but I could be. And if I were, all of us look very different in these boxes. Right. But we all hold a measure of implicit bias. We would have all thought, well, perhaps the women should be wearing an hijab and, something else and what's going on. What does that mean and look like for us to check our own biases so that we can address them on a societal scale?
So Patricia, I think one of the things that concerns me is that Muslims, I feel for so many years we're on the defensive. We're always like, oh, no, we're peaceful people. Oh, no, we're good people. Our values are good. And it's very difficult to grow up in a society when you're on the defensive. And I understand, Imam Muhammad, you didn't have negative, perhaps, obviously you probably had racist experiences pre 9/11. But when I was growing up in Illinois in the 70s, and I'm 55, by the way, my brother, who is the same complexion as me, we're half Indian, we're half English. He was called the N-word because everyone in our class was blonde. So we were the ones who stuck out. And he was called the N-word. Look at our complexion. And every time after we had Yasser Arafat and the PLO, we had 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini, what's going on with Iranian Revolution. We were the ones who were bullied in our school. So there were many instances pre 9/11. I don't see my life as post 9/11 and pre 9/11. I have dealt with this for a long time, but I agree with you, Imam Muhammad, that this is all different forms of hate. They're all different forms of hate. We have to recognize that we all have biases. And for me, it makes me so mad when people say, well, I'm unbiased. No, we all have a bias. Just recognize what your bias is. I recognize what my issues are, whether the chips that are on my shoulder. That doesn't, and I'm going to try to at least acknowledge that when I look out my eyes, and I'm going to see people through my eyes. So we all carry some kind of baggage, but it's at the end of the day, the problem becomes when you dehumanize somebody and that justifies violence against that person. And that is just unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. And that's what crosses the line. And from a person of faith, I believe God created us all our souls were created by God. And it's not my responsibility to judge who is good and who is bad from a perspective of faith. But my job is to love everyone and to treat everyone with dignity and respect, and stand up against hate, even when I see hate being, against some other person in other faith. Maybe I'll be like, oh, that's not my community. I don't care. You know what? That's a human being, and I should care.
If I may add something to your point, and I think a lot of these discussions need to be held also among the Muslims.
We need intrafaith.
Right. We need interfaith.
Intrafaith. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. Islam teaches us that we all share the common nature of humanity. In Arabic, we call it al-insaniya. All of us are human beings. And Islam comes with core principles for the protection of that humanity. It's core part of our religion. And namely 6 things. And so we want to look at bias. Every one of us should look at these 6 core principles that everything in Islam come to protect them. Protection of life, protection of reputation, protection of religion, protection of property, wealth, resources, protection of lineage, and protection of the intellect. When we look at those 6 categories, and each and every one of us look deep inside of ourselves and say, where do I fall short in protecting one of those things in others? If I secure it for myself, have I secured that right for the other? And Islam teaches us that the communal benefit is far more important and of priority than the individual benefit. That's a very important principle in Islam. For the community, the society to be whole is of a greater weight than one individual. And that individual cannot disconnect themselves from the communal priority. We call that fard kifaya in Islam.
Right.
Not just a fard ayn, something on me. What about everyone else? And I think bias falls in often when we don't consider the other. And the Prophet told us, peace and blessings be upon him, none of you truly believe until you love with your brother what you love for yourself, among the good things. So that's the essence of faith, when you prefer others over yourself. You're concerned about the rights and the honor and the dignity and the life and the prosperity and the development of others I think when we all look at ourselves and where do I play a role in not facilitating that, I think we can bring down bias.
And Patricia, I
Excellent.
may just add that I think implicit bias does exist everywhere. And the reason I think is that we always look at the appearances, not the reality of people, not knowing the individuals, simply going by what they look like or how they speak or how they dress. And just you make assumptions about people. And I think that's a mistake. So the way to get rid of that is by getting to know each other. And that's one of the other principles that Imam, you just mentioned, that, that God created us all as, different colors, different nations, but for the purpose of lita'arafu, so that you may know each other, not that you despise each other. And the other principle that I think we can emphasize is that God tells us that you are created as a community to do what is good and to prevent evil from happening. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And it's your responsibility to, if you see something bad, to try to stop it, try to prevent it. In fact, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has said that, stop it with your hands if you can. But if you can't do that, stop it with your tongue, at least speak against it. And even if you can't do that, then you dislike it in your heart. And he said, that is the weakest form of your faith. So the point is, we are called upon to take action when we see something wrong. And clearly, as I said, unfortunately, people act on their biases without making an effort to really dig deeper and get to know people. And I think, as Atia pointed out earlier, the connection with people. I mean, as people, get to know each other, once you become familiar with the individual, once you know your neighbor, right? The hate cannot exist in that kind of environment.
Thank you. Thank you. What I'd like to do now, unless Deputy Attorney General, did you want to say anything on that? And if so, you're welcome to. And if not, I'm going to come back to you right after I do my little presentation.
I know better than to try to follow that, Patricia. So
I
I'm going to
understand.
respectfully.
I don't even want to follow that,
I'm
but I
going
have
to
to.
respectfully stand by the comments of my esteemed panelists. Thank you, Patricia.
Okay, right. So this is how I feel. But what I need to do right now is just I'm going to try and make this in 8 minutes instead of 10, because I want to get back to all of you for final words. But I do need to talk for a few minutes about the law against discrimination and kind of explain what we have here at this time, just so that we all know, so that everyone in the audience knows what's available to them. And so with that, I will, just a moment. Okay. And so this is a very abbreviated Know Your Rights presentation. We give much longer ones. I shouldn't say much longer ones, but we give some that are about 30 minutes. And so, like I said, this is going to be only about 8. But I do want to introduce to you the introduction, talk to you about the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights, the New Jersey Law Against Discrimination, which is the LAD, and how to file a complaint on the New Jersey Bias Investigation Access System. So basically who we are and what we do. We were created in 1945 by the New Jersey legislature, and our mission is to prevent and eliminate bias, prejudice, and discrimination in New Jersey. We sit underneath the New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety, which is housed under the Office of the Attorney General. And we are the state agency that enforces 3 key anti-discrimination laws. The first one is the New Jersey Law Against Discrimination, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. The second law is the New Jersey Family Leave Act, NJFLA, and it offers job protected leave. And the third one is Fair Chance in Housing Act, which is an act that states that a housing provider, and that could be a landlord, a home seller, or someone that's over a dormitory, is prohibited from asking about a rental applicant's criminal history on an initial application. I want to focus just right now on the law against discrimination. It actually sounds very similar when we get into some of the things that the imam listed. The New Jersey law against discrimination makes it unlawful to subject people to discrimination or harassment in employment, housing and real estate, places of public accommodation, and credit and contracting. It protects residents on several protected categories. And so you'll see several of them that we've already heard tonight. Race or color, religion or creed. I won't read all of them, but you'll see that all of these protected categories are some that you can have with, and you can see that there's intersections. So perhaps you may be of the Muslim community, you may be Black, you may be an immigrant, you may have different national origin, nationality, or ancestry. You may have a disability. In some cases, they also protect age, lawful source of income and housing. And all of these are here. They are actual or perceived. So just as an example, if someone is in an employment situation and someone is harassing someone and saying that and calling them names based on being Muslim, but it turns out that they're actually not Muslim, they can still file a complaint because the person was thinking that this person was Muslim. And so whether it's actual or perceived, that protected category applies to the person that's being harassed. So this is an example, and part of it I just gave: protections from discrimination in employment. The LAD prohibits discrimination in all aspects of employment, including but not limited to some of the ones that are listed here. Anything in terms of recruitment or job postings, promotions, terminations, compensation, including salary and benefits, all terms, conditions, or privileges of employment, and membership in a union. We have protections from discrimination in housing. And in the same way, you have discrimination or harassment being illegal when renting or buying a house. And landlords and real estate professionals cannot refuse to lease to you because of your religion or any of the protected classes, deny you access to financial services, charge you a higher rent, or offer you different amenities, or refuse to make generally required repairs because of your protected category. Housing providers must also reasonably accommodate your request based on your protected category, unless doing so is an undue burden on their operations. The third one we'll discuss is the LAD prohibits discrimination in places of public accommodation. And generally speaking, when we talk about public accommodation, it's any place that offers goods, services, or facilities to the public. So schools, colleges, and universities, stores and businesses, typically not places of worship. So that's not listed here. Summer camps, hotels and motels, medical providers, hospitals, those are also included, and government offices or agencies, including police departments. Now, there are several bias incidents that occur and bias crimes as well. Not all bias incidents are bias crimes, but all bias crimes are bias incidents. If you feel that you've been harassed or you've been part of a bias incident, you may come to the New Jersey Bias Investigation Access System, which is NJ Bias for short. That's DCR's online portal to file a complaint. Our website is bias.njcivilrights.gov. In order to get started, you would create an NJ Bias account and submit a form online, or you can call DCR for assistance. Our number is 1-833-NJDCR for you, or 711-RELAY. And it's important that the complaint is filed within 180 days of the incident, and it falls within DCR's jurisdiction. To determine if DCR has jurisdiction over the complaint, a DCR intake specialist will interview you and ask additional questions regarding the submitted intake form. After your interview, if DCR determines jurisdiction, this form is prepared by the specialist for your review. You'll sign it, and then you'll become the complainant, and then the respondent will be served. And the respondent can be an employer, a housing provider, or whatever entity you provided. The respondent has a chance to respond with their version of the events. DCR will conduct the interview in such a way so that when you have your interview and the respondent and witnesses, you make sure that you have as much documentation as possible, any videos that you may have, any type of information that will help your case. Additional materials, and it's important to note that retaliation is prohibited. In terms of resolution, DCR will determine what's possible. It could be a mutually agreeable resolution, or there's either a finding of probable cause or a finding of no probable cause. Probable cause, evidence substantiates a violation of the LAD or the NJFLA or the FCHA, all three of those that I mentioned earlier. And DCR will take the case to either the Office of Administrative Law or Superior Court. If the finding is of no probable cause, the evidence does not substantiate a violation of the LAD or the other two acts, and the case is closed. So that's a very fast version of what the NJ bias system is. In terms of other things that we do in DCR, we have trainings through our education and training unit that we always want to mention. njcivilrights.gov is our website, and then you can go to trainings. They are free, and the topics these are just a few of the topics, but they offer very interactive opportunities. Hair discrimination is a very popular one. Microaggressions, how to respond to them, understanding implicit bias. So we do encourage you to go to some of the trainings and invite others to come as well. Just want to list these. These will also be placed in the chat in terms of how to stay connected with us. I mentioned most of these already. I will say for the email, you can reach us at communityrelations@njcivilrights.gov. And please be advised, the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights and its employees do not provide legal counsel or legal advice, and we do not comment on ongoing investigations or litigation. And so with that, I would like to come back to, let's see here. I want to come back to you. Give me just a second. There we go. Okay, there we go. So that is a very, very brief overview of what my state agency does and how it can connect to this community or any community in New Jersey. And so what I'd like to do now, because we're running very low on time, but I want to ask everyone if they have any final words or anything that you'd like to leave with the community. And we'll try and get to one or two questions if we can. I see a whole lot of questions came up while I was speaking, but we'll see what we can do. I'm going to start with Deputy Attorney General Bajrami.
Thank you, Patricia, so very much. I can't thank my co-panelists enough. I have learned, frankly, certainly more than I expected to, and I hope that's the truth for our audience out there. And as far as I'm concerned, I just want to continue to thank the public for their support. We can't do what we need to do without you. I certainly hope some of the outreach and lessons from this evening are imparted upon people who are curious, who wanted to know more. I just want to take a moment to shamelessly plug the members of our brave law enforcement community, in particular, our detectives here at DCJ, our partners around the state. Oftentimes, we don't have the opportunity to do anything but react when bad things do happen, specifically when they pertain to bias. And I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, we should acknowledge that there are people out there 24/7 around the clock who are working very, very hard to remedy situations when they do occur. So beyond that, thank you very, very much for your time this evening. It was a pleasure to speak with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Atia?
Sure. A couple of takeaways. Number one, if you're not Muslim, get to know a Muslim. Okay. Get to know a Muslim. And number two, if you're Muslim, get out there. Don't live in your bubble. Get out there and be part of the larger civic world. Speak up against bias. You know, so many Muslim people that I know, men and women, sis brothers and sisters, don't want to bring, oh, no, I don't want to talk about it. Yes, report the bias. And also do not be defensive. You belong in this country. You are an American, whatever color you are, whatever ethnicity you are, whether you came here when you were 20, 10, or you were born here. So you are a member of this community. Speak up, don't be defensive. And you know what? If it's time to pray, make sure you have accommodations. When you're fasting, make sure you have accommodations. When it's your holiday, don't say, oh no, I'm not taking the day off. You take the day off and you make those accommodations. That's what we need to do. You want to build your mosque, you deserve to build your mosque. You don't, you know, we have to fight. That's what it is. So those are my takeaways. And finally, yes, we need intrafaith conversation. So Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all. This has been great.
Thank you so much. Imam Muhammad.
I want to thank everyone for this intriguing dialogue. It really was beneficial, and I learned a lot and benefited a lot. I would say what the Prophet Muhammad taught us, peace and blessings be upon him. He said, meet people the way you would like to be met, which could translate, treat people the way you want to be treated. And always treat people with excellent manners, behaviors, and character. That's a hallmark of the Prophet Muhammad and Islam. Husnul khuluq, excellent interaction and behavior. The other thing, for my Muslim brothers and sisters, please be more than talk. As we ask the broader society for inclusion, make sure we inclusive ourselves. This is a very important concept. As God teaches us in the Quran, heinous is that you say what you don't do. Grievous is the fact that you're claiming bias and you're more biased than the ones who are you claiming bias. Be careful with that. Because before we're in front of the people, we're in front of God, and we're going to answer for hidden biases. Let's not be that way. For our non-Muslims, government officials, I put one thing for you, as you did tonight, never have a gathering speaking about Muslims until you do your best to include all segments of the Muslim community. That's extremely important. Too many times are segments being the voice of all Muslims, and that is a terrible reflection of Islam. Don't do that. Please engage everyone. Everyone of the Muslim community is a part and open to engage. So please, whenever you have gatherings, even if you're lacking connections, connect with those who you know who will connect you with others. There is plenty of access, plenty of resources, plenty of diversity. So just as we need to reach out, likewise, our partners in politics and law enforcement and in education need to reach out as well and establish that so we can overcome what we're all trying to overcome and live as good citizens of this great country. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Chowdhury, you had the first word, you have the last word.
Well, I can certainly echo everything the Imam just said and Brother Atia said, but I would add two other points. One is a suggestion, and the other one is an appeal. The suggestion is that when, for example, someone reports a bias incident, please keep them informed about the progress of the investigation. Now, you can't always reveal things because we discovered this. There was an incident in Highland Park, and there was an issue of reporting. It was also an incident in Edison, and people reported it, but they did not get any response for weeks. And that's what, so they lack confidence. They said, oh, they're not doing anything about it. So I think even if you cannot share the details, at least let people know some work is being done. What steps are being taken. That I think is an important element in building confidence for the community to say, yes, law enforcement is listening to us. That I think is very, very important. And the final point I would make is stand up for the other. You're familiar with the pledge to stand up for the other. That is so important that we recognize that problems will happen in every community, and we need to reach out to others and help them fight the battles with them, fight the battle against every community that might be suffering from it. So with that, I want to thank you again for organizing this. And by the way, just one final point about what the Imam just said about involving Muslims. When the Muslim Outreach Committee was formed, the Attorney General was meeting with us the first time. One of the key conditions that we put forth to him was that if this came out of the LAPD disaster, right? We said, if you're going to do any kind of a study of the Muslim community, you want to know, you're going to begin to gather data. You want to create a database, right? You try to do any kind of a project, please get Muslims involved at the ground floor when you begin that, when you begin any effort like that. So I strongly support what the Imam had just advocated, because I think that is a show of trust. In fact, I remember saying to the AG at the time, directly saying, treat us as partners, not as suspects.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to thank all of you for a very rich conversation. I know this could be one that we could take a half day, a full day, a weekend, a lot more. But we wanted to at least bring this much to the community so that we can continue the conversation. I thought I saw more questions than I actually do. I see a lot of very positive comments and very reflective thoughts. I don't see questions. So if there's any questions, I just ask you to go ahead and put them in the Q&A so that we can ask those in the last few minutes. What I will say, what we're also going to do is we have a survey that we would like to ask you, how did we do? And that will be put in the chat. And so we ask all of you to complete that so that we will be able to have some improvements. We always want to know how to bring more things to the community and, what we can do better, what we did well. And so we really appreciate that. I see it just went into the chat now. So please do that. I definitely just, I've learned so much, and I'm so pleased with everyone coming together. Everyone had a diverse perspective, which is one of the things that we were looking for. And I just thank you. I just thank you so much. We know we have a long way to go in terms of education, a long way to go in terms of bringing down fear, a long way to go even in terms of trying to get that true definition of what is Islamophobia, and it's best to define something so that when you define it, now you know how to go about dealing with it. So once again, Dr. Chowdhury, Imam Muhammad, Deputy Attorney General Bajrami, Atiya Aftab, and I just want to thank all of you for coming tonight. I also want to thank the Community Relations Unit, of which I'm a part of, for helping in the background. My director, T. Leonardo Santiago, who led us with her opening remarks, and Fanny Chan Jarvis and Tabitha Rodriguez, who have been helping in the background. So thank you all. I'll give you 3 minutes back for your time. And so we'll thank you. And our next.
Thank you. I have a quick question.
Yes. Yes.
What
Dr.
would
Chowdhury.
be the use of this webinars, the information that has been developed? Is this going to be further distributed to people, available to people that, may want to listen to it? What could we
Absolutely.
tell our community about it? Perhaps if it's a link available that we can send out so others can benefit from it. I'm glad. to
Yes,
see
we
more than
record the
50 people
majority
there.
of our programs. I would say all, but some of them that involve children, sometimes we do not. But for the most part, any webinar that we do with the Division on Civil Rights Community Relations Unit, it is recorded and it is placed on our website. And when you give us about a week or so, just to make sure everything is edited properly, we have things on there for several protected classes. So I've done one with mental health in the Black community. I've done two actually. And so sometimes we come back and we revisit the topic and see if we've come a little bit further. And so that's something else that we would like to do. I would hope this isn't the only time that we talk about the Muslim community. I would love to have another conversation, perhaps with you, all of you, and more. And perhaps it could even be in person. Those are some of the different things that we offer. And so this is just a start, and we wanted to make sure that we could get that to you. The slides that I provided are not given out directly. However, you can view them when you see the video, and we will create a resource document. I would encourage those of you, the panelists, if you have something specific that you would like in the resource document, to please send that to me. And I will add that along with the things that we have that you saw in the chat from the Division on Civil Rights in terms of our resources. But those are the two things that we put on the website so that people can view them at any time. And I mean, anytime. We have some things that are, at least we've been here 2 years, and we have some things that are almost 2 years old. They're still relevant. And so we leave those on so that people can see them through our archives.
If I may add, if there is the possibility, I think it would be very beneficial to have a in-person dialogue. I think I could speak comfortably on behalf of our Honorable Mayor, Marty Small, and our City Council, and our Police Chief, and our County Prosecutor, and all of our education force. We would gladly host this in Atlantic City.
Okay.
Absolutely,
welcome
so will
you.
we.
And we would be glad to have you and make all the accommodations. So if that could ever be done, and we would help promote it.
We got it recorded. We will
Yes.
come back to you, Imam.
Very
And
good.
so with that, I can't give you 3 minutes back, but I actually took one, but we will keep that in mind. I'm going to just say thank you to everyone again. Have
Thank
a
you very
great
much.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you and good night.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
Alaikum
alaikum.
salam.